There is two options actually, to record on the cloud or to record on the computer. So I don't, let me, okay, I did recording on the cloud anyhow. It will come back.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
inshallah.
طيب بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. All praise be to Allah, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and those who follow his footsteps till the last day. Inshallah, we'll start our class. Just before I start, I want to... okay, you can start, inshallah, reading where we stopped. But just tell the brothers the page and start.
Yeah, last week we completed page number 28 and top paragraph in page number 29. We have to start with classes of wajib now.
Okay. Right.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Classes of wajib. Firstly, wajib may be categorized into two classes relative to the doer of the obligatory action, fard ain and fard kifaya. If the action must be done by every individual personally, like the 5 daily prayers, then it is called fard ain. If it is sufficient that some persons perform an obligatory action like Salatul Janaza, then it is fard kifaya. I will read now footnote number 39.
Okay.
Footnote number 39. Prior to these divisions, the wajibat may be divided into two broad categories relative to Allah and His servants. Category number 1, the wajib, which is a right of Allah. This refers to either ibadat like the 5 daily prayers, uqubat, punishment like the fixed punishment, hudud, uqubat containing the meaning of ibadah like the atonement, kafarat, or others like the waiting period, iddah, for divorce and death. Category number 2, the wajib, which is a right of other human beings, for example, the right to retribution, qisas, punishment for slander, and the replacement of damaged or destroyed property. As regards the right of Allah, no one has the right to cancel them. They may only be cancelled by those acts or factors proven by sound legal evidence. Thus, the debt of missed fast may be made up by fasting other days, or payment fidya for those physically unable to fast. On the other hand, the rights of humans may be dropped by those who have a right to them. Thus, the right to execution of the murderer may be dropped by the relatives of the deceased. I will go back to the text now, Sheikh, or read the...
Okay, we can just go over these two things.
Right.
The wajibs.
Yeah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made wajibs, due to him, and wajibs, actually it's part of it is due to Allah, yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the right of human beings to what we can say, to give, to forgive. And for example, qisas, as we know, a person can, for qisas, forgive someone, not to get him executed, but would he be forgiven from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This needs no doubt a tawbah by itself. The wajibs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like the ibadat, which is well known ibadat, like also the aqidah that he has to have in his heart, Yet the wajibs Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made, as rights for human beings, those human beings can give their rights in some. For example, zakah is the right due for the poor, but it cannot be forgiven by human beings. And no poor, for example, say, "Khalas, I'll forgive you not to give zakah, and zakah will be dropped." No. But there are certain, like qisas, like the slander, okay, like the backbite, like the money, the debt. Those due to human beings should be given and can be forgiven from the sides of human beings. Yet one should differentiate, and it depends on the what's that, like what we said, as for the qisas, as for the slander, it can be. Yet it should be known that we should differentiate between, the things that has two sides of rights. Rights due to Allah and rights, for the human beings. Like qisas, like the slander, like the backbite. One needs to, even if a person forgives, one needs to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from that. Even, for example, debt. If some person gives a loan to another person, and this person, he didn't give it, or he doesn't pay it back, and he met that guy, and that guy, he said, "You are forgiven." He needs, that person should have been not resolved not to give that money back. Otherwise, he might get, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us, punished due to that, or liable for punishment. Okay, so we need to distinguish between certain matters. The wajibs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very clear. Okay, like the salats, the fixed punishments that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made hudud. Okay, and the kafarat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made, the iddah. Okay, these are rights, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, for example, iddah is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it, made it a right due for him, and it's a right for the husband. Okay, so these things should be looked at from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made wajib, or nobody, for example, can forgive someone not to pay zakah. Okay, this is the point need to be known. Yes.
I will read again, Sheikh, from page number 30.
No problem. Go ahead.
Wajib may be categorized into two classes relative to the doer of the obligatory action, fard ayn and fard kifaya. If the action must be done by every individual personally, like the 5 daily prayers, then it is called fard ayn. If it is sufficient that some persons perform an obligatory action, like Salatul Janaza, then it is fard kifaya. In other words, the legislator does not look at the doer of the action, but the action per se, regardless of whoever performs it. You like to explain, Sheikh?
Yes, thank you. No doubt that, first of all, when we come to define the terminology, there are certain aspects that we need to look into. First of all, the action itself. Okay, when we look at the action itself, or with regard to what we refer that terminology, I'll just give example. When we define fiqh, when we define tawheed is very clear. If we look into if we define tawheed with regard to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we divided tawheed into 3 categories: tawheed al-rububiyyah, tawheed al-uluhiyyah or al-ilahiyyah, and tawheed al-asma' wal-sifat. This is with regard to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we come to, if we divide tawheed with regard to the doer itself, the one who does Tawheed, we would say Tawheed al-Ibadah or Tawheed al-I'tiqad. Okay? Or the ulama, they say Tawheed Tawheed al-Ibadah means what we can say Tawheed of your actions, the unifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your own actions, unifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your i'tiqad, your beliefs. Okay? يعني the ulama, they sometimes they give it the name Tawheed al-Irada wal-Qasd and Tawheed al-Ibadah. Okay? Tawheed al-Irada wal-Qasd, this will include Tawheed al-Rububiyyah and Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. And Tawheed al-Amal or Tawheed al-Ibadah will be Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. So sometimes when we look at the definitions, we have to look into with what regard they made that definition. So when we come to the wajib, if we made it relative to the doer, we would say there is wajib ayni, fard ayn, and there is wajib kifai or fard kifai. Okay, these are synonyms or names for the same, term. So wajib al-kifai is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made obligatory, but not, he subhanahu wa ta'ala has not made it on every individual. No, he has made it a collective, act. If it is done by some, then the burden is removed. However, the wajib ayni, every single Muslim, okay, is asked to do that. Okay, wajib ayni is like salah. Nobody can do salah in lieu for another person. But unless this salah is Salatul Eid, for example, or Salatul Janazah. So if we say salah, we mean the 5 daily prayers. Salat al-Fariḍah, it's better to be more specific. Salatul Fariḍah is, fard ayn. Every individual has to do this salah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their timings, okay? And there is no exemption. Even if a person is so badly sick, okay? If he is conscious, he has to do salah. Even if he can't do wudu, he has to do salah, okay? Yet the fard kifai, if it's done by some Muslims, alhamdulillah, the burden is removed on the whole ummah. But if it is not done by some of the Muslims, then the burden would be all over the ummah, with their different posts or positions. No doubt the burden on the ulama will be greater than the laymen. And the burdens on the rulers whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the authority is more than the ulama. Okay, it's a shared. But then we go even with the laymen, they have, to do something about that. They might not be free and they might be liable for the punishment. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves. So this is the what I want to say about the fard kifaya and fard ayn. Okay. Now, secondly, he will define the wajib with regards to the time. You can read, inshallah, and we'll go to that.
Okay. Secondly, with regards to the time of an obligatory action, the wajib may be divided into 2 classes. Mudayyaq, which is restricted, and muwassa', which is expanded. A, if the time is limited and only sufficient to perform that particular obligatory action, then it is called mudayyaq. For example, the fast of Ramadan, in which fasting takes up the whole time between dawn to sunset, as such, it's not possible to fast voluntary fast during the same time period. Another example is that of the remaining time for an obligatory prayer. If the remaining time is only sufficient to pay the compulsory prayer, like shortly before sunrise for Fajr and shortly before sunset for Asr, then voluntary prayer should not be offered. If the time is limited only sufficient to perform that particular obligatory action, then it is called mudayyak. For example, the fast of Ramadan, in which fasting takes up the whole time between dawn to sunset. As such, it's not possible to fast voluntary fast during the same time period. Another example is that of the remaining time for an obligatory prayer. If remaining time is only sufficient to pray the compulsory prayer, like shortly before sunrise for Fajr or shortly before sunset for Asr, then voluntary prayer should not be offered. B, it is possible to do an obligatory action within a particular time frame and there remains enough time to perform similar actions. Then it is called muwassa. For example, the time period for daily prayers. Since the time for each prayer is extensive enough to allow the performance of voluntary prayers along with the compulsory prayers, voluntary prayers may be made in the time frame of the compulsory prayers. Would you like to explain, Sheikh?
Okay. It seems inshallah clear, but I can go over it again. This now, as we said, he said, with regard to the time, we have two divisions. Time, which is مضيق. مضيق means it's constricted. It is and the time frame of that thing is very limited. Or, for example, as he mentioned, Ramadan. The fasting of Ramadan, you cannot fast anything with Ramadan. Okay, and Ramadan is a month. You have to do that month. Okay, and the time for fasting does not permit person to do any other fasting within Ramadan. Okay? So Ramadan is مضيق. Its time is مضيق, and it's very clear in Ramadan, especially for example for the time of fasting. It takes the whole time from dawn to sunset. There is no time to do any other fasting. Okay. Like, for example, he gave example with the time of the Salah. If the time for Salah is about, and the remaining time is too short to do that Salah only, then it becomes, مضيع, وقت مضيع. Also, the ulama, they give example to that, or they include the Salah when it is obligatory in a person to do it in Jama'ah, that it is waqt مضيق. So nobody should go to the masjid, and if he finds the imam doing Fajr, he starts to do his sunnah. Okay, because this time now is for Salat al-Fariḍah, and you are restricted and constricted to follow the imam and to be with the imam, not to do your Salah aside from it. Not only that, even the Prophet ﷺ, he regarded that person as if he's doing his sunnah within the faridah. Person, did salah after the iqamah, and he said, you made that salah twice, or increased the rak'ahs. So a person should be aware of what's the meaning of mudayyak and muwassa'. Muwassa', if a person, for example, is not obliged to do salah in in jama'ah, now he can do salah anytime between if it is dhuhr, for example, after the sun inclines to the zenith till till the shadow is like the object. Okay. Now this is the prime time, for example, nowadays is from 12:25 up to 3:35 or 3:40 when Asr, before Asr commences. Now this is a time for the Salah which is very expanded. You can do within that time other ibadat. Okay. However, the ulama, they said it's better to do it, at its time. For example, if a person thinks that he would be busy within that time, and he knows that if he doesn't do salah at the beginning of the time, after 12:30, he will be busy at 45, minutes, after 12, he will be busy. Now it becomes a mudayyak, constricted time for him to do salah. So a person should realize what's the meaning of mudayyak. If we look into the time of salah, aside from the doer, because the doer might, pertaining to him, the mudayyak and the muwassa' might be different with regard to salah. So if you look at the time of salah, it's, as we said, muwassa'. But if you look at the doer, then again, this needs a person to have fiqh. That's why if a person knows that he will forget, his sunnah, and he won't make it in the masjid, it's better to do it in the masjid, okay, as early as possible. If he knows from himself that he will do witr, before the fajr, he will wake up and he will do it. It would be nice. This is aside from wajib, it's muwassa' for the nafila. So the mudayyiq and muwassa' is more than even at the wajib. To other, sunnah ratiba has the mudayyiq and muwassa' also. I hope, inshallah, this is clear. If anyone has a question, inshallah, we can address it at the end, inshallah. Now, go ahead. Yeah.
Thirdly, with regards to the obligatory action itself, it is also divided into two classes. Muayyan, which means specific, and mubham, which means unclear. If a particular action is required to be done and cannot be substituted by another, then it is called mubayyan. If an action is unspecified with regard to a number of things and any one of them can be done, then it is called mubham. For example, the kafara may be done by freeing a slave, feeding the poor, or clothing them. I'll go over again. With regard to the obligatory action itself, it is also divided into two classes. Muayyan, which means specific, and mubham, which means unclear. If a particular action is required to be done and cannot be substituted by another, then it is called mubayyan. If an action is unspecified with regard to a number of things and any one of them can be done, then it is called mubham. For example, the kafara may be done by freeing a slave, feeding the poor, or clothing them.
Okay. You want to read the footnotes?
Right. Okay. The Hanafiya refer to the wajib. Oh no, I think I'll read the footnote number 50, Sheikh.
Yeah, okay.
Almighty Allah states the following regarding the atonement for breaking an oath. لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم ولكن يؤاخذكم بما عقدتم الأيمان فكفارته إطعام 10 مساكين من أوسط ما تطعمون أهليكم أو كسوتهم أو تحرير رقبة, which means Allah will not blame you for your careless oath, but He will hold you to account for your intended oaths. So its expiation is the feeding of the needy people from the average of what you feed your own families, or clothing them, or freeing a slave. Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 89. The wajib is to do any of these actions, not a specific one. One who breaks an oath and does not do any of them has committed a sin. Fourthly, with regard to quantity of the obligatory action, it may be divided into two classes. Muqaddar means quantified, and ghair muqaddar, which means unquantified. Some obligatory acts are given a specific quantity limit, like the number of units of Salah as-Subh, for example, which is fixed at 2, or like the obligation of zakah relative to gold and silver, which is 2.5%, for camels, sheep, cows, agriculture, etc. All have fixed amounts set by the legislator. These types are called muqaddar. On the other hand, some obligatory acts have no quantity specified in the Sharia. For example, maintenance for close relatives. What is obligatory is fulfillment of their need. However, if the matter is taken to the court and the judge rules that a specific amount be paid for maintenance, it is then calculated according to that amount. The wajib muqaddar remains an obligation if not done on time, like salah and zakah, while the wajib ghair muqaddar does not remain an obligation, like spending on the needy, saving a drowning person, giving maintenance for close relatives, before being fixed by a judge or by mutual agreement. You like to explain this, Sheikh?
Yes, okay. So he gave her, he said, fourthly, with regard to quantity of obligatory action, it may be now, again, we said with regard to the time, with regard to the doer, with regard to the action itself, and with regard to quantity now. So he said with the quantity, with regard to quantity of the obligatory action, it may be divided in two classes. Muqaddar means known as a quantity, as he said, quantified, and غير muqaddar, unquantified. You cannot know its quantity. And he gave some examples here, okay, like the number of units of Salatul Subh is known, okay? Nobody can add to that. It's muqaddara, it's known, not fixed. He said the zakah is known, 2.5%. And for the camels and sheep and cows and agriculture, all of these are fixed and muqaddar. Nobody can change the quantity or subtract from it. For the zakah, as we know, especially for the camels and the sheep and the cows, a person should, take out from it, or should give in zakah, not from the best, nor from the, the least, okay, the most, the bad ones. However, he has to be on average. Even the Prophet ﷺ, when he used to, I went into this to show you how the Sharia is so, what you can say, comprehensive, and even looking into the, what would be, sometimes it might be, what we can say, affecting the people hearts. And it's so compassion in the deen, and there is so mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that even the zakah, if it is taken from their camels or sheep or cows or agriculture, should be taken from the average. And the Prophet ﷺ said, إِيَّاكَ وَكَرَائِمْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. Don't go to the best, things of their, wealth. Why? Because a human being sometimes will feel, might feel bad about it, and Islam doesn't want, to affect the people. No, they should, from the average, okay, the normal, but not to go to the bad ones. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the zakah, that a person should not give the things that if it is given to him, he will not take it unless, you know, and he just want to what we say, to compromise with that person, and he doesn't want to, you know, to reject what he gives. So if a person, when he is given and when he comes to give a zakah, he should look, if that thing was given to him, would he be taking it or not? That's why a person should not go to the bad, you know, amongst his, you know, wealth and give it away. لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا ما تحبون. You will not attain birr till you provide from whence you love. Okay. Right. So he said on the other hand, some of the obligatory acts have no quantity, as we know in Sharia, and like the obligatory of fulfillment, you know, a maintenance to your family. If, for example, there was a problem and the person was complained by his wife to the judge with regard to maintenance, that he is not giving her enough, the judge will look into in accordance to his means, and he will judge him to pay for that in accordance. It will not be, it's not something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it specific in Sharia, quantified and muqaddar. Same, we can give an example with the Sayd, with the games, when a person is in state of ihram or inside the sanctuary, the haram, he is obliged, you know, not to give, you know, the what you can say, to give anything from his mind. No, if he, for example, hunted something, two of the trustworthy, knowledgeable people, okay, should judge what would be the kafara for that, what would be an expiation relatively or relative to what he made. So if he has hunted, for example, a pigeon, they will judge. And it, subhanallah, it was not quantified, it was not restricted. Why? Allah knows best, it seems, due to the fact that maybe, and Allah knows best, is due to the fact that things change by the time. You will find, for example, the deer, sometimes they are so scarce, it becomes so expensive. And sometimes it becomes, you know, so cheap. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it in specific, and He has given, you know, to the judgment to be based on a wise, trustworthy, knowledgeable people, two persons. Okay, and this shows us again how the Sharia takes care even of the what you can say sometimes very, very tiny things, and there is no contradiction in Sharia. Subhanallah. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have specified, for example, the you know, the amount of paying for games, the currency changes, okay, and the people, the value of that changes. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-wise, the all-knowing, that times changes, and the scarcity of the games sometimes makes it more expensive. Allah has given it, made it to be ruled by people. Same like maintenance of a woman. Same like taking care of one's relatives. So it depends on their needs, okay? That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not made it quantified. Yes, I guess this is, inshallah, enough with regard to this. You can carry on.
Yes, and I like to skip this evidence for Wajib Sheikh. There are various evidence in the Quran, Sunnah. Let me go to
Yes.
Mandub.
Okay, nice.
Right.
But he wants, we just want to show something here before you go. When he talked about evidence for wajib, he will show the صيغة الأمر, okay? صيغة الأمر, because sometimes it becomes as a verb, like يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا, okay? And sometimes it comes, a present tense verb prefixed with the imperative lam. ثم ليقضوا تفثهم. So these expressions are needed to be known by the one who studies Usool to know that these are, if it comes in Sharia like this, with whether it is صيغة أمر direct, a verb, أنفق, or when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, like in Hajj, ثم ليقضوا تفثهم وليوفوا نذورهم. So it is a present tense, but it means it's a binding, or it is wajib upon them to do this. Okay. The noun imperative. Okay. He said, وغلقت الأبواب قالت هيت لك. Okay. This is a noun. Okay. Hayt. I'm ready. Okay. Hayt actually لك, and هيت لك, or I'm ready for you, which is, he gave an example with the woman who had seduced Yusuf alayhi salam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him from such, thing. But he wants to show the noun imperative here, that it gives also the wajib or the amr. So sometimes a person needs to look into this. So he gave like similar to this is hayya ala salah, come to pray. Words and their derivatives. You can read this, okay?
Okay. Words and their derivatives which indicate obligation and compulsion. The following are some example. Farad, that is to become obligatory. When someone claimed that witr was wajib, Ubadah ibn as-Samit said that he was incorrect and quoted the following statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as proof. Khamsu salawatin iftaradahunna Allahu ta'ala. Khamsu salawatin iftaradahunna Allahu ta'ala. There are only 5 prayers which Almighty Allah Most High made obligatory. Sunan Abu Dawud, Kitabut Salah.
This is a good point here, you see. Nice, we didn't pass it. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or in Sharia, فرض عليكم, or in the Quran or the Sunnah, if we find farada, the word, okay, or iftarada as here, we know that it is farida, it is wajib. And Ubadah ibn Samit here, he objected on making witr and regarding witr as wajib, because with the statement of the Prophet ﷺ that the only obligatory salats are 5. So if you say witr is fard also wajib, this means it becomes 6. Okay? Yes.
Kataba, that means to write. Allah stated the following in Quran regarding
Kataba, to write, but actually the meaning intended here is to prescribe. He prescribed, don't you? Right. Yes.
Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyamu. O believers, fasting is prescribed for you. Surah Baqarah, verse number 183. Yes. And wajaba, that is to become a must. Abdullah bin Amr related that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ta'aful hududa fima bainakum, fama balagani min haddin faqad wajaba." Ta'afu al-hududa fima bainakum, fama balagani min haddin faqad wajaba. Excuse the fixed punishment among yourselves, for whatever reaches me must be implemented. Sunan Abu Dawud, Kitab al-Hudud.
And like what? Like what? Give example to this. Can anyone
That,
give example?
that means if a case is taken to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, applying the hudud has become a wajib.
Yes, but what kind of hudud? Because we need to know what this is actually specific, not so general. Because we know, for example, if someone comes to the Prophet ﷺ for qisas, he can forgive later. But there are certain hudud you cannot. Like what?
Like fornication, Sheikh?
Yeah, like zina, may Allah save us. Like also sariqa, theft.
Right.
Because if theft was raised to the imam, and if someone, for example, someone, stole 100 riyal from him, and is so rich, and that 100 is like, a penny for him. If he raised him to the judge will order him to chop his hand. And this person will say, no, 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 خلاص, I forgive him. No, now you have raised this for implementation, it will be implemented. Okay. The only exception is the blood, in the blood or in the murder. He can say, I forgive him, even if he would have raised that. And one need to look into this. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said, ta'afu al-hudud. Even, for example, for the slander, okay? If, for example, a person, accused the person of zina, and this person, he might forgive him, but if he raises him to the judge, that person will be lashed, finished, okay? Okay, yes.
And amar, that is to order, demand, command. Allah stated the following concerning the keeping of trust. Inna Allah ya'murukum an tu'addul amanati ila ahliha. Indeed, Allah orders you to turn over trust to their owners. Surah An-Nisa, verse number 58. And haqqa, to become right, a duty. Allah stated.
Before you go, this ayah was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. إن الله يأمركم أن تؤدوا الأمانات إلى أهلها. When the Prophet ﷺ conquered Mecca, and when he conquered Mecca, the Banu Shayba, who used to have the keys, and still till now they have the keys for Kaaba and for Haram. The Prophet ﷺ took the key from them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayah to return it back to them. And subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored them to have this. Until now, their descendants have this. Banu Shayba has the keys to Haram. Yet, so it was specific to that, but it is general in a sense. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Inna Allah ya'murukum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders you. And this order is not only to the rulers, so it is meant in the first place to the rulers, also to the Muslims in general. Yes.
Haqqa, to become a right or duty. Allah stated the following in the Quran regarding maintenance for divorcees. وَلِلْمُطَلَّقَاتِ مَتَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ. Reasonable maintenance should be provided for divorced women as a duty on the pious. Surah Baqarah, verse number 241.
Yes.
Shall we stop with this, Sheikh?
Yes, we can stop here, inshallah. And the next week, inshallah, we will start with Mandub.
Yes.
If you have questions, inshallah, we can address them. If there is
Sheikh, I have a question. Regarding, you mentioned the debt between, the people. If a person say that I have forgiven the debt, I don't need it. Later on, he changes the mind, go back to the debtee, asking, I need my money. So what is the hukum in this case, Sheikh?
If he has given, given away that, it becomes again, if it's a problem if they go to the judge. Because first of all, if he has given his right with regard to that debt, the debtor, the debtee, yeah? The person who got the debt and he had to pay it back is free from that obligation. Now, if he would demand it again, it's not his right. Yet, if he would raise the problem, if there is no witnesses, to the judge, and he would have, for example, evidences, he might get it back. But then he will get it back, without right. So this is the point here. He cannot go back to say, no, give me money. It's finished. If the person would give a loan, and this person later he said, okay, you are forgiven, alhamdulillah, it would be like a gift now. And the Prophet ﷺ said, ليس لنا مثل السوء. We should not have the example of the bad example. The one who gives, a gift, and he returns back to take that gift out of that person, it would be like may Allah protect us and save us and honor us, would be like the dog. When it eats and vomits, and it eats what it laid out again. And the Prophet ﷺ said, like the dog which vomits and eat what it vomits. So a person in this regard, he would be like that example. If he gained it without right, okay? If it was a gift, it is disliked, or it might be forbidden to do that, as the Prophet ﷺ gave this example. So how about if it is a debt and he forgave the person, and now he wants to take it back? Okay? Amen. Any more questions, brothers? طيب, جزاكم الله خير, inshallah, so that we can catch Salat al-Isha. May Allah reward you all for your attentive listening, and save us and protect us. And we ask Allah subhanahu to provide us with means that we don't account. And may Allah reward you for your attentive listening. And we say, may Allah save us and protect us from this pandemic and raise it from the whole world and guide us to the way most pleasing to Him. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. واخر دعوانا ان الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى اله وصحبه والحمد لله رب العالمين.